and for us as adults who are here, I know there's some young people here as well, to be able to help our children from as early as possible to develop good mental health and good physical health. So there's a segment there that will be helpful for you to understand the importance of what we're giving our children on their food, on their plates, and how important it is for their future mental health, present mental health, and future development as adults in terms of their emotional resilience and their ability to cope with stress and capacity to deal with life. A lot of it comes from what you put on the plate. Besides what you teach them and everything else, it's your body. God created us in such a wonderful way that everything who we are, everything we need, actually, it comes from what we eat. And of course, what we think and how we live our lives. So that's very important. So I've entitled this Foundations for Family Health, and I will do my best to make it as understandable. I'll skip that page. I'm going to skip that as well. So cornerstones of health. I'm just going to ask you, I've already maybe given it away, but for the sake of conversation and keeping us engaged as well, what are the key elements of health that you know that are important, that you think are the most important? I'm probably going to need some water if you can get me some. Yeah, thank you. This is almost finished. What are the foundations of health? What are the key cornerstones of health? What do you think? Everybody, no answer is wrong. Exercise, yes. Water, yeah. I couldn't live without water. I pray to God. I'm not a complainer. I'm a positive person generally. I think I was born like that, but I've also learned to do it. But I would have been probably quite annoyed with if when they ran out of food, out of water in the desert. I would have probably been quite annoyed, like a lot of them were, about the fact that we had no more water as we were going to Canaan, because I love my water more than anything else. I'd rather drink than eat, because, yeah, I get dehydrated quite quickly. I drink probably 3 liters of water a day, if not more. Yes. So I wake up and have a liter. Usually by the time I've done an hour or two, I've had a liter of water. And then by lunchtime, by afternoon time, if I go to the gym, I'll have another liter. If I'm not in the gym, I'll still have a liter of water. So I probably have 3 liters a day, which is all right because you need to eat as much water, drink as much water as possible. So exercise, water, other things. Sleep. Yes, sleep is very important. Yes. The sun, yeah, being in the sunshine, particularly for us, people of color, you need more sunshine than while you are in this part of the world than people of a white, like Caucasians, because of the fact that we block out that UV and we need the the vitamin D. So you need to supplement. Yes. Diet. Yeah. So what we eat, okay. Other things that are important for health. Fresh air, yes. Trusting God. So we know that the 8 laws of health. So what I want to talk about today is just one of these things, but we will talk briefly at the end. But I'm going to focus primarily on our health related to our gut. The most important part of health, all of these things that you spoke about, they feed into what is going on in your stomach and what is happening in your gut. But your gut is literally, I will call it, the most fundamental aspect of your health. Exercise impacts it, sleep impacts your gut, and everything else. So you want to basically we want to talk about our gut health. And I'm hoping my lesson objectives for today are that when we leave this place, we're going to be more intentional about eating for our brain and our gut health versus eating for appetite and our tongue and just because of culture and what we're used to. Because sometimes we do that. We eat certain foods. For example, in my culture in Zimbabwe, we eat a lot. And I know there's some people here who've got that as a staple food as well. We eat cornmeal. Maize flour that's been pounded and then mixed with water, and then you make it, and it's like a thick, not a porridge, it's like a thick porridge to begin with, but when you let it set, it's like a cake, sort of, yeah. And then you use it to eat your stew, right? Like pounded yam or cassava, whatever. So we do the same, but fufu, yes. So when I'm talking to people from my country and I'm having to help them understand how that food actually impacts their bacteria and their gut, they're like, oh, what are we going to eat? So what are we going to do? So what do you want us to eat? And then I have to explain scientifically why what I'm saying is true so that they get it, so that they can go into their kitchens and think of different foods that they can eat that are actually were foods that we ate more in Zimbabwe before the colonizers came. So the Portuguese brought maize to Africa from South America. We didn't have it. We didn't cultivate. There was things that we cultivated, ancient grains like sorghum and millet that we had, and that's what we ate. And that's what our bodies were used to. Maize came in the 19th century or 20th century, actually, with the Portuguese, and they planted it in Africa because they needed to eat, right? What they knew, having gone to South America and so on. And they came with it, and then we adopted it, and now we make it our staple food, but our bodies don't like it. And our bodies struggle with digesting that food, and our genetics makes it hard for us to do that because genetically, yes, we are when we are more or less like our ancestors and our great grandparents, we carry those genes, and that ability to digest, to like certain foods is passed on, right? And so we didn't have the gut capacity to deal with maize. We still don't. And you know it because as soon as you eat it, what happens? You may be constipated, you get bloated. What else happens? You're tired, you fall asleep. You fall asleep. And every time your body's stressed by something, it stops to digest. And if you are digesting things that require a lot of energy and your body's struggling with it, it shuts down everything else because your brain uses 25% of the energy that you eat. And so in order for your body to focus on really sorting out what is in your stomach, it needs to shut down your brain so that you can digest, but you fall asleep and you can't really digest when you're sleeping. And so it's a bad situation. And everyone will tell you this if you're in Zimbabwe, the only people who can eat sadza properly and carry on are construction workers and other people who do heavy manual work. Because once they eat, they're using that energy. And so their bodies utilize it. Everybody else, when you eat, you sleep. It's a lullaby. There's reason for it. Am I saying we shouldn't eat maize? Probably not in that form. Because when you eat maize corn in a cob and you boil it and you cook it, do you sleep? So when people eat corn in a maize cob that's roasted or boiled, they can eat that and it's fine. So it's different. But when it's been pounded and boiled with that water and so on, and it's been processed like that, yeah, your body it struggles with it. So but I'm going to teach you something. I would like all of us to just learn what our bodies don't like. Some people, corn can be okay for them, but for some people, cornmeal, like the majority of people, cornmeal makes them shut down and then they can't function. So it might be better to think about something else they can eat. And most Zimbabweans will tell you that when they switch from using cornmeal as their sadza, their meal, to using millet or sorghum, they don't experience the same impact. The sorghum and the millet works well. They don't fall asleep. They have energy. They feel lighter. They don't get bloated. And that's because millet and sorghum, more fiber, smaller grains, but also that's what we ate. And now we eat differently. We're going to talk about some of the things that we eat differently now, like wheat that's processed wheat. We ate wheat as it was, as a grain, or maybe pounded locally. Now we eat milled wheat that's been preserved, and flour improved and enhanced and all of this and bleached. And when it comes into our stomach doesn't know what to do with it. And now you've got problems of bloating, inflammation in your body, and it's causing you disease in your body. So it's not wheat that's a problem. It's how wheat has been used now in our diet. It's different from what it should be. So we want to talk about the gut and how the gut and the brain are connected and what's really important. We know that our gut affects our mood, our brain and our gut are working together in such a manner that one affects the other. So I'm going to give you a test. We ate beans, right? There was a broad, what do you say, broad beans? Butter beans. Butter beans are not my favorite. No, I like the taste of them. They don't like me. Right. So I like the taste of them. So I enjoy the stew. However, butter beans are probably one of the beans that when I eat, I have a bit of discomfort. And so there's a reason for that. And so let's say you ate beans. We all ate beans here, but let's say we ate beans that had gone off. What would happen? Flatulence? What will happen if you keep flatulating, if that's the word? What tends to happen if you continue producing wind? What will happen eventually? What will happen? How do you feel? Bloated? How else do you feel? Pains. You start having pains, stomach pains, maybe. What else do you feel? Let's say you're producing stinky wind. What eventually happens? What happens to your head? You start getting headaches, right? Because you're basically polluting yourself from the inside out as well. So you start getting this gas. The gas goes into your bloodstream and it starts to impact your brain as well. And that's one way, an example of what we've eaten and how it impacts your brain. But let's say that continued to happen. Let's say you were constipated. How do you feel emotionally when you're constipated? Stressed? Somebody else, young people, how do you feel when you're constipated? We've all been constipated. Headaches? Okay. How do you feel when you're having a diarrhea? Weak, but also mentally, how do you feel? Eventually, you get worried and you're clouded. So our gut, whatever is happening in our gut, is going to eventually lead to us working or functioning in a certain way. And also, when our brain is not working well, our gut is impacted. How many of you are like me? When I would write exams, I would go to the toilet so many times. Yes, to wee, right? I'd be weeing, like I'd stand by waiting to do my exam. Like when we did the final exams, you'd be at the school hall, and then you're like, you have to ask someone to go with you. Please, I need to go to the toilet. And they'd be annoyed with you. It's almost time to go in, and now you like, I need to go to the toilet. Sometimes I'm sitting there and I need to go to the toilet, and invigilator has to go with you in case you want to cheat. Right, so they take you to the toilet. They're pretty annoyed about that. If I'm writing an exam, if I'm about to sit an interview, guess what will happen? I want to go to wee, right? If I'm about to go on a date, what will happen? The same thing. When I'm leaving the house, same thing. If I'm about to, like this morning, I was coming, I was like, I have to go, I have to go. The moment I put myself in that stress mode, what's the first thing that my body's going to want to do? Exactly. So I get annoyed because I'll go 3 times before I leave the house. Because especially if I'm like running, and then I'm like, but I need to go. Stop it. Because we need to leave. We need to leave, right? That's my sympathetic nervous system that is working on my bladder. So my brain is telling my body there's something anxious that's going on. So now we need the body to do certain things. And I was talking to someone in the bathroom just this afternoon that there's a statement we say, a stressed body cannot digest. A stressed body cannot digest. So your brain will freeze every other function. Like I said earlier, a stressed brain cannot digest. And so your brain, your mood, your emotions are going to be impacting your stomach and what's happening there. But most crucially, they impact your gut bacteria. Now, this is an interesting thing because we don't think of the body or the gut as we think, okay, digestion, but actually what is determining what is happening in your gut, how much you digest, whether you digest, whether you absorb food, you don't, how you eliminate food, it's actually bacteria. Your enzymes that digest your food are there to break down the food, but the actual chewing of the food is done by bacteria. Did you know that? It is your bacteria that chews your food and breaks it down. The enzymes start that process, but your bacteria actually is the one that starts your process and continues that process of breaking down your sugars, breaking down the fiber and everything that is there. And bacteria, in order to do that, but bacteria are very finicky, and some of you will think I'm biased. So our bacteria is what we call our second brain. I don't know if you can see that. Let me turn around. So there are 100 trillion microorganisms in our intestines that communicate with the brain. So the first thing that tells your brain that something is amiss is who? Is your gut bacteria. Your gut bacteria will tell the brain if the food is bad. It will tell you. First of all, it smells the food, right? That the food is gone bad. This food is rotten. And if it's rotten, it's going to make us sick. And it tells the brain that. You will smell it. You will also sense it that something is not right. This food isn't good. But your bacteria has done that work because your good bacteria has the ability, the intelligence of being able to tell what food you put in it, whether it's a protein, a fiber, or whatever. Also, the status of that food, whether it's bad or fresh, your bacteria knows that. And good bacteria will stay away from bad food. And the bad bacteria will thrive in the bad food. So your bacteria tells your brain what's going on. In a healthy gut, the bad bacteria struggles to flourish. And 70% of your body's immune system is found in your digestive tract. So if you're fighting diseases, flus, whatever it is, the first place actually that does that is here. And I actually will say that your gut starts in your mouth. Yeah, your gut starts in your mouth. So your saliva is part of the defense system. You've got bacteria in there. You've got what's already going on. And also your nose is part of that system because your nose can smell if food is not right. And has anyone ever, no offense to anyone here who might eat ham or bacon, whatever. But I remember one time I got a sandwich and I didn't realize it had ham. But the moment I bit into it, I smelt it. And immediately my spirit, like I wanted to just throw it out because I'm not, okay, maybe we've been so conditioned as Adventists, but also because it wasn't a good smell for me. I've never eaten pork, so it wasn't a good smell. So immediately my gut wanted to go, and I literally had to go and get rid of it, right? So my nose told me straight away, this isn't something you need to be putting. So that's part of your body's system to protect you. And the gut processes food, produces vitamins, enzymes, fatty acids, and more, and they do it through your bacteria. So this is very important because many of us don't actually think about our bacteria in that way. Somebody said, you are actually bacteria. You have more bacteria on your skin and inside you than you have cells. Every other cell, like your skin, your muscles, all of that, your bacteria is way more than the cells. So literally, I watched a TED talk one time, and this guy was talking about how we are actually walking, living, talking bacteria. You literally are. And the good bacteria, the better, if you have the good bacteria, the better. So you are literally that. And the good bacteria needs you to take care of it and to listen to it because it controls, like I said, and we know that not only is 70% of our immune system in the gut, but also 80% of our feel-good hormones are made in the gut, your serotonin. So the hormone that makes you happy is made in your gut. So let's just say you've got a bad gut. What's probably going to be happening? To you, you're going to be depressed. Exactly. You are going to be depressed. So if your gut is not looked after, you're going to be depressed. Years ago, while I was doing my work in Zimbabwe, I discovered I used to do stress management work in companies. And I'd go around and I'd work, train and do stuff like that. And I had this book that was really good. It was about nutrition and your mood. And it talked about vitamin B12 and B6. And it was the first time I was hearing this. I hadn't done my public health degree at that point, and straight after uni. And I was discovering that because of the importance of your nutrition to your mood, if you have B12 deficiency, you are never going to be happy. If you have B6 deficiency, your immune system and your nervous system is probably going to be impaired, and you're going to have nervousness, irritability, and anxiety unrelated to anything that could be going wrong in your life. So you might have everything perfectly, but if you're deficient in these hormones, you're actually going to be more depressed and anxious than somebody that's troubled by many things, maybe in their circumstances, but they eat better. And B12 especially, very crucial. B6, to the point that we have to supplement people when they come into psychiatric units with B12 deficiency. You have to give them the B12, because if you give them antidepressants without the B12, they will not get better. So most of our anxieties, some of our anxieties are because our gut is bad. The bacteria in our gut, mostly that's flourishing, is bad bacteria, or we're deficient of B12, B6, maybe B5 as well, or B3, and also maybe vitamin D, because we know how that's related to our mood and our immune system as well, right? So we want to be looking after all of this, and I know it can be very complicated. So let's simplify it for the sake of time. You want your gut bacteria to be happy if you want to be happy. So that's point number one. Your gut bacteria actually has intelligence. We've talked about that, right? It knows what's bad and what's good for you. And so if your gut bacteria tells you that this food, for example, we talked about cornmeal. I'm happy to talk about cornmeal. I don't want to tread on anyone else's toes with their country foods. I'm happy to talk about my country food. And I know there are a few of us who eat it, but whatever else you might have in your countries that you eat, but if your body struggles to function after you've eaten that food, that's your bacteria telling you that this is not good for us, that we're failing to digest it, we're failing to work with it, and you need to change it. So give me some examples from your own experiences. Personal, cultural, food habits, anything that you know that when you eat, you don't feel good. Either it produces wind in you, or inflammation, you feel pain after you've been eating it, or you feel tired, or you can't sleep, right? Okay, that's fine. You probably eat it in small quantities. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Or less. Mm-hmm. They tend to eat more than 20 meals, and then they get heavy and lethargic, and then get some complications. Right. But if they reduce those 20s and ate more of the 80s, the fruits and vegetables, they would feel more energetic. Absolutely. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Awesome. So you're eating it in certain quantities, probably with the flaxseed helping as well with the digestion in the porridge. Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. So that's what I'm talking about. That, yeah, the turned cornmeal. Yes, go on. Popcorn. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Chicken, not good for you. Okay. All right. Okay. Chicken, corn, popcorn. Yes. Quinoa. Okay. It works. Okay. Do you want to help us with the microphone? Who wants to pass the microphone around? Somebody wants to help us do that job so people can talk. Excuse me. Did you all hear her? Okay. All right. Okay, so she's talked about quinoa and how she had to work around quinoa, making it better, more digestible for her by soaking it, which we tend to have to do with beans as well. And then we can also add black pepper or cayenne pepper to help break down some of those proteins that can be helpful, and some of the compounds in some of these foods that are more difficult to digest. Yes.
Normal bread.
Normal bread.
Yes, so I tend to eat gluten-free or sourdough.
Okay. So what happens when you eat normal bread?
Oh, I'll feel very bloated, and I also have difficulties in going to the doing number two. So I'll be very constipated.
Constipated.
Yeah.
Okay. So the gluten in wheat sometimes can be difficult for some people. So gluten, if you have a gluten issue or intolerance, you might experience what she experiences. And it's not all proteins as well. It's not all wheat proteins. Sometimes wholemeal might be better than white flour. So white bread might constipate you, obviously, because it has no fiber, but it might cause you more bloating than when you eat, like even with pasta. If you have brown pasta, wholemeal pasta, it's easier than when you have wheat. The gluten can be a problem. Anyone else that's noticed something that their body doesn't like, or that causes pain, flatulence, constipation, things that they can't digest? Okay.
Mango, banana smoothie for me.
You find, do you know what's interesting? Bananas, some people don't actually digest bananas properly. There are quite a lot of people who can't eat bananas. Yeah. So the sugars, yeah.
The bigger ones is better, but the smaller ones I could eat a whole.
Okay. Yeah. And I find with bananas, I can't eat them on an empty stomach. So if I eat a banana on an empty stomach, immediately my stomach churns, it's painful. So I know if I'm going to eat a banana, it has to be with something else. I have to have eaten something else already before I have the banana. But I actually have family members who can't eat bananas at all, that it hurts them to eat bananas. They have some form of an intolerance or allergy. And watermelon, the same. A lot of people can't deal with watermelon, and that's interesting. But what's good is that we can educate our guts. We can teach them, especially if we improve our gut bacteria and the enzymes and support how the enzymes work, we can find ourselves digesting a lot of other things that we didn't digest before. However, there's certain things that your body totally doesn't like altogether. And so even if you educate yourself to eat those things, you really shouldn't be. So you just want to stay away from them. Yes, I think you've got your hand.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, is this any better?
Yeah.
But it's a bit better. I was just gonna say, some of these things that we are sort of not functioning well with, isn't it about sometimes what we're eating it with? So for instance, I think of the Caribbean way of using bananas or plantains, especially plantain.
Okay.
We fry it
Mm-hmm.
in oil,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not coconut oil.
Right.
Right? It's going to be the common oil, and we fry it and we use it like that. Now, to some extent, I can get away with it. But I have recently discovered another way of using planting, and I'm very happy with it to the
Mhm.
point that I have sort of dissed the banana
Yeah.
to a great extent, and I've taken up very ripe planting, and I'm eating that instead of the smaller bananas.
Okay.
And I'm finding it I'm eating it as it is, straight from the skin. I'm not frying it. I'm not baking it. I'm just having a ripe planting. And I will use that and have it with other fruits instead of, because it's heavier, I use it instead of eating breads. Yeah. And it's very satisfying, you know, and you don't have to eat a whole heap of it.
No.
Yeah. So it's also about what we're using with that food.
And how we're cooking the food. So we're going to talk about that because we're talking about bacteria today. Your gut bacteria doesn't like fried food. We might like the taste of fried food and the smell of it when we drive past certain takeaway places and so on. But your gut bacteria, the bad bacteria thrives in that fat. And you are going to feed and flourish the wrong bacteria when you eat fried food, whether you fried it yourself or you bought it in a takeaway, you're doing the same thing. And basically that means your good gut bacteria will not be working as well and will not be thriving and doing the job they're supposed to be doing. And that's why you'll find you'll have other issues besides your gut health issues. You'll also have your mood and other things. So I just want us to quickly talk about food that the bacteria likes. This will be interesting. So first of all, we're going to talk about the food that feeds the good bacteria. So prebiotics. So on the left, yes, on my right to your left is all what we call the prebiotics. So all there's the tomatoes, artichokes, garlic, leeks, and bananas, flaxseed, legumes. So your beans, your berries, chicory, and dandelion greens. So if you eat a lot of greens, if you eat a lot from the family of the leeks and the onions and the family of legumes and beans, lentils, things like that, you're going to make your gut bacteria happy. And the second picture here is what we call probiotics. So probiotics are foods that already contain live bacteria that we want to add to our system so that we have more good bacteria. And you can get it from things like yogurt, not so much actually, but things like kimchi, kefir, sauerkraut. We can make our own, all of those things. We can make sauerkraut from just salt and cabbage that you leave there to ferment. So anything, foods from the fermentation process are going to provide your system with good bacteria. Foods that are on this side are actually what your bacteria eat. So all the stuff here on the left, the prebiotics are what your bacteria eat. So you want to focus on that. So remember we said you are bacteria that is walking, talking, thinking, and therefore you need to feed yourself. If you were bacteria, what would you be eating? This is what that's what you'd be eating. So many of us don't eat like that. Some of us don't like some of those things, and that's fine. There's a wide variety God has created us to enjoy. So you don't have to necessarily eat leeks. I don't necessarily eat leeks all the time, but I eat onion every day. And I'm going to eat garlic every day. And I have some greens every day. I usually have flaxseed in my smoothies, and I will have beans every day and berries every day. So I know I'm feeding my gut, my bacteria the right way with what I like. So just as long as you have as much of the yellows, the greens, the blues, and all of that in your plate, you're going to feed your gut bacteria right. You have your hand up. Yes. Oh, I think there's a microphone.
Is there any alternative? Because you've mentioned all those beautiful greeneries. That's good for the gut. Now, I'm in a bit of a is it a predicament? Yes. I'm on blood thinners
Okay.
and I'm told to avoid a lot of greenery.
Okay.
which I'm struggling with because I
Right.
love my broccoli and stuff like that. I really do. So I'm kind of struggling because the more I have is the more my bloods go off from where they need to go. Do you have any suggestions of how you can counteract that?
Okay. I would tell you what I would talk to your physicians about is trying to eat as healthy as you can and them balancing that. I was on warfarin for several years. I had blood clots after a flight that should have killed me in 2007 and didn't die. Miraculously, they were shocked because the blood clots traveled all the way to just before my lungs. And I walked about 2 weeks after that flight without any pain until my leg just started swelling. And then I went to the hospital and they did the scan and discovered that I had blood clots from the back of my left leg all the way to just in my iliac vein.
That was similar to
Yeah.
what I had going on.
So I understand how you're feeling, and what was happening was I was really struggling as well because they were like, oh, you can't. They gave me a list of things you can't eat so that your blood doesn't get too thick, and so on. And then eventually, it was just difficult. So what I did was, because initially I was going every 2 days and getting checked, and you have to get your numbers right and so on. Eventually, I just focused on eating as best as I can, and they had to work with it. And so they would change it. So because otherwise I was not to eat anything except white stuff and starches and so on. And I was on warfarin for more than 2 years. So it was a long time to not be eating right. And I decided that after I spoke to someone else, I was like, actually, it was Dr. Chidi I spoke with. And at camp one time, those years, 2008 or 2009, I said, this is what's happening. And he advised me, I was like, okay, this is what you do. Go speak with them. And so when it happens, they don't get surprised. Like, why is your INR going up so much, right? Because you tell them I'm eating kale and I'm eating cabbage, I'm eating spinach because I need the iron and I need all the other things. And then they just adjust it. Yeah, they will. They'll adjust it. Because and that's it. How long have you to be on it?
They don't know. So
Okay.
I'm just
Yeah. So
taking it.
imagine if it's a long, long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't work. And even if you took supplements, like if you take supplements of broccoli and so on, they don't do the same thing. You need the fiber, you need all of the nutrients that come from eating fresh fruits and vegetables. So you're not really you will get some benefit, but not all. So you really just talk to them and see how they can work with you to make it easier for you to eat well. Yeah.
Brain is 90%, and it's at 80%. Our body is
Our body is 70% water, and I think the blood is 90%, and the brain as well is 80% water. And water is an excellent blood thinner, and we should drink water until the urine is pale. If you've got any color in your urine, if it's yellow at all, you're not drinking enough. And a lot of us do not drink enough, and we focus more on eating. And that in itself can cause blood clots.
So we want to have as much water as possible, drink as much. And this is for everyone. When you fly, drink lots of water, right? Because your flight, the compression makes your blood thicker. So you want to walk around as well and drink. And what happened to me on that flight was I didn't walk around. I was unwell. And I came on the flight and I slept for 7 hours. I didn't even wake up. I didn't wake up for the food or anything, for drinking, for walking. I was sick. I was coming from Canada. I had some infection while I was on my travels in North America, and then came back home unwell and sat on the flight and just slept. And with the medication they'd given me for the infection I'd got while I was traveling in America and so on, I was heavily sedated, almost heavily sedated, and it also caused that thickening of my blood as well. So the fact that I'm standing here literally is a miracle. Like literally a miracle. Because I was in hospital for a week and they would come to see my leg. The student nurses and doctors would come and see my leg and say, we've never seen anyone live through something like this. The magnitude of the blood clots, it's a miracle that you're here because most people just drop dead. Yeah. And they never tell the story like we're doing now about warfarin and being in warfarin clinic and being the youngest person in warfarin clinic, and all these other people are 80 something, and so and sitting there, you know. So yeah, you need to walk and you need to drink your water. And nowadays, when I see people on flights, when I fly, I will wake up and I walk and I'll set the alarm. In the early days, I had to literally tell the flight attendants to wake me up and get me, so that I'll tell them I need to wake up every 2 hours. If you see me sleeping, please help me walk. So I had to do that. Otherwise, I was at risk again, and I have been at risk. I've had a couple of other incidences, but I watch people now on flights and they are fast asleep, snoring the whole flight. And I just think, wow, I mean, ignorance is bliss, right? But I can't really sleep on flights anymore. So yeah, you have to walk around. You have to walk around. So let's move forward. You want to, as much as possible, eat variety. You want to have as much variety in your diet, and most of it should look like that. It should look like nuts and seeds. What we read in the morning, there was a quiz about what God gave us in Genesis 1, verse 29. It was seeds, fruit-bearing, seed-bearing fruit, and herbs that he gave us to eat. And so that's what should constitute most of our eating, to feed our gut the right way. This is what your bacteria likes to eat. And not just, you know, we often think, and that's why I was saying, when I'm done, I hope you think differently. Because we often think, oh, I need fats for my brain, which is true. Or I need fats for my nervous system, which is true. Or I need seeds for protein for my muscles. That's true. However, the key to all of that working and being digested is your gut bacteria. You need to eat for your bacteria in order for those fats and proteins and everything else that you're putting in your body to be utilized, to be digested, to be excreted. You need to make your bacteria happy. And you can only do it by eating the right way, preferably vegan. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So special mention to beans and legumes and so on. They are what your bacteria absolutely love. I know I struggle a little bit with butter beans. I'm okay now. However, there's so many varieties. You know, there are over 200 types of beans in the world. Over 200. How many types of animal meats are there? Beef, especially if you're Adventist, beef, mutton, chicken, goat, mutton, yeah, what else? Lamb, yeah. Fish, maybe you've got tilapia, the kosher fishes, yes. What else? Deer, venison, buffalo. Do you know you can eat giraffe? Just don't go eating giraffe. I discovered you could eat giraffe. I was looking for kosher. What's kosher foods, right? Somebody was trying to convince me that duck is kosher. And I was like, no, okay, who thinks duck is kosher? Okay, a couple of hands, one hand thinks duck is kosher. Right. Everybody else doesn't think duck. Why isn't duck kosher? Or why is duck kosher? Let's have a debate. Why is those who say it's kosher, why do you say it is so? That it's got web feet, right? So it's got web feet. So because it's got web feet, but there are a lot of Adventists who eat duck because they say that it's I don't know the argument, but they say it's kosher. They like it. Yeah, what is it? Mock duck, but no, they eat the real duck. They eat the real duck because they forget that it has to just fulfill one criteria for it to not be kosher, right? Either or. So duck is not kosher because I've seen people eating duck eggs and things like that. No, it's not. So we've named maybe 6 or 10, maybe 10 varieties of meats, but there are over 200 varieties of beans. from all over the world, probably every country except England. England, the only bean they have is baked beans. Heinz baked beans. Now, that's because, and when I would tell people this, they'll be like, oh, so you just want us to eat baked beans every day? And you're like, no, but you know, we know how to eat other beans, right? Black-eyed peas and cowpeas and black beans and mung bean. And yes, I love mung bean. Yeah, green split peas, yellow split peas, dal, all sorts, the tiny little beans, big ones, kidney beans. I don't like kidney beans. I love black beans. Yeah, I don't like kidney beans. They don't like me as well. I don't like the taste of them. But there's so much else. I like our, what we call in Zimbabwe, sugar beans. It's the pinto beans. Yeah, pinto, we call it sugar bean. Really tasty, but you have to have sugar beans from Zimbabwe. You will love sugar beans from Zimbabwe. They're so good. So we've got all this variety. And guess what? Your bacteria is happy that there's so much variety because interestingly, different bacteria like different beans. So so my bacteria doesn't like butter beans. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. But some bacteria like lentils, some like the red beans, some like the other bean, the white bean. The bean that makes the baked beans is navy beans, haricot beans. So you can make your own baked beans. Just buy haricot beans, add tomatoes and onion and spices. You avoid the sugar and the preservatives. Yeah, then you can have your baked beans at home. So all these beans, what your bacteria like, but different bacteria favor different types of beans, which means what? Variety. So we have to eat variety because we don't know what bean you like. Today, if I only ate baked beans, then I'm only giving my bacteria, maybe I'm making only one type of bacteria happy. Yes, you had your hand up, and you had your hand up first, yeah.
A quick point, Edith. It's just to say that, you know, the second brain or the gut bacterium, which is the microbiome, it's quite interesting because everybody's microbiome is quite unique. And so, as you've alluded to, it's not everything that I can eat that Phoebe can eat.
Yeah.
So we just have to be mindful of that.
So everyone's got different, and that's why I would recommend trying various things, whether it's vegetables, your beans or the leeks, those prebiotic foods, as much variety as you can to give your body that exposure so that you know what really you like and what your gut bacteria likes so that you can eat right for you. Because some people can't do some of those beans, and some people will say chickpeas. Like, I can do chickpeas twice in a week, not more than that. If I do more than that, I start to have flatulence. But I could eat pinto beans every day, and I'm okay. So I know that if I eat chickpeas or if I eat hummus and chickpeas, that's enough twice a week max. But I can have lentils most days of the week and be fine. Black-eyed peas are good for me. My gut works well with them. So if you give yourself that trial, eat lots of variety, you will discover what's really good and works for you. But also, you remember who's giving you that feedback is your second brain, your gut, that's telling you that. You had your hand up. Yes.
Yes, two things. Well, I discovered something once when I was feeling unwell. I was getting a bit upset. But it's funny that before I vomited, I felt it in my head.
Okay.
So I was beginning to feel funny in my head, and then I felt the discomfort in my stomach,
Right.
and then it came up. And as soon as it came up and out, then my head was fine.
Right.
So it confirms what you were saying about the second brain being in the stomach. So the first brain clocked on and said, you know, something isn't right in the second brain, and then the second brain came in. The other point is to do with beans. I've discovered that a lot of health advisors, like if you watch things online, like say YouTube or whatever, and people who are talking about weight loss and muscle building and weight management, they don't seem to feature beans a lot. They seem to feature more lean meat. They tell you, you know, you need to have beef up your protein, have like steak, have like chicken breast, have those things. And I often wonder why, but I also discovered that some people seem to associate beans with flatulence. And I think there's a way around it in terms of the preparation. So if you can speak to those things for us, that would be
okay.
helpful. Thanks.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Yes, so first of all, the world had a misconception about protein and the idea that protein is mostly in meat, and animal protein is better than plant protein in terms of giving you, say, the muscle power and so on. But we actually know now that animal protein, there's certain actual foods that have more protein than what you might find in some animal protein. We also know it's easier to digest plant protein and use it than it is to digest animal protein because of all the other difficulties. Our bodies are not engineered to digest animal protein. And also the thing is about iron a lot of the times. So iron can be an issue because animal protein tends to contain iron and some plants don't. And so there was once an emphasis on using plant protein to get iron. But we know that you can get iron from other sources now, and you don't have to worry about being vegan and being iron deficient. You can actually have all that you need. So I think it's just the world has this, it's like the thing about milk, right? They were taught, and it was an indoctrination from the agricultural industry, the animal husbandry industry, to get people to eat more meat and to drink milk. So the farmers can make money. And they do that a lot still with milk. You know, you got milk, you know, you've got calcium, you got this. But we know sesame seed has more calcium than milk. And you know, you can get your iron from molasses, you can get iron from lentils, you can get, it's also though the combinations and the complete amino acids. So whilst some beans will not have all the amino acids, quinoa, for example, has everything, it has all the amino acids that you need. So you can actually have quinoa and have a complete food from quinoa. And also the combining of your foods is important. So if you have rice and chickpeas, or rice and some other bean, you release some of the protein. Rice even has protein. You release some of the proteins, you end up with a complete amino acid profile from combining your foods in the right way. So I think a lot of it has to do with ignorance. A lot of it is industry that they teach people this. You have so many vegan bodybuilders. Now you see them, lots and lots of vegan bodybuilders who are quite strong. I'm in the gym. I'm not necessarily the most, you know, but I've literally been growing my muscle bulk from eating what I eat. I have plant protein. I work out 3-4 times a week, and I'm lifting. My weights have gone up. I used to lift when I started in the gym 2 years ago. I was lifting the yellow weights, the 1.25, you know. The colors, you know, if the least one, right? If you're in Pure Gym or one of those gyms, the 1.25 was the least. And the yellow, you go from yellow to blue to orange and then black or whatever. I was at this yellow with the bars, and I would be now I can lift 25 kgs, I can lift 30 kgs. And I'm doing it, eating my beans and so on. So which is great. I'm moving on to 35 kgs soon. Yes. How do beans
Help you.
How do beans help you? So who wants to answer her question? Somebody answer, how do beans help us?
They're high in protein.
High in
And
protein.
high protein helps to make muscles, to make you strong.
Yes. the high
But also, I like the point that you mentioned to say that if you eat beans, you will not pick up the 10 essential amino acids all in beans. You've got to eat beans and grains in order to pick up the 10 essential amino acids, and then your body can make other proteins that you need as you go along, but you must pick up the 10 essential amino acids. And then I'd like to touch on that fluctuance that some of us are getting.
yes.
The preparation of the beans.
Yes.
You know, some beans, okay, the butter beans is one of them, and red kidney beans. You must be careful how you cook them and prepare them. Butter beans, you must soak them well overnight. They give off a chemical substance that causes gas. Soak them overnight and throw that water off. It's dirty water. Then boil them, and then after that make the stew. The butter beans produce a chemical. I didn't know. I haven't got the name of the substance. It gives off a substance, a chemical property that causes your body to pass wind. So you must soak them overnight, throw off that water, even boil them for 10, 15 minutes and throw that water off too. And then prepare your dish with butter beans. Red kidney beans can cause food poisoning if you don't cook them really well till they're soft. And also sometimes beans and peas bean are very high in fiber, which is good, but if you don't drink enough water to help flush it through your intestines, the food will get stuck in your intestines, and then your body will speak to you to say it's stuck. All of us. And when you pass wind, it's good. That's the beginning stage to tell you that something is stuck inside your system and it ferments and gives off a gas. That is good for you because it's trying to tell you, send down something that will lubricate the substance and pass it through. You usually need to hydrate, and also maybe you might have to pass something that helps your bowels to move a bit more, such as prunes or flaxseed or piece of aloe. But when you're passing wind, it's telling you something stuck inside your intestines. Do something to get it to move. So beans are high in fiber, and sometimes they do get stuck if you don't have enough fluids, water.
Thank you so much. And about the beans, yes, because that was your second question about flatulence and people associating. So preparing, it's interesting she mentioned the two beans that I struggle the most with, and especially if they are from cans or if I eat them out when, when people are serving food at restaurants and others, because they get them from cans. And they don't do the process that you're talking about usually, or they've been soaking in the can in their water that they don't throw away. And sometimes they just cook with that water. And so I struggle mostly with kidney beans. And if I buy my own butter beans and soak them, I don't struggle. I love the taste of butter beans. Even fresh butter beans, I will buy fresh butter beans from the frozen section. Love them. So it's how you do that preparation that's very important. Breaking down those compounds. Some people add a bit of black pepper or cayenne to while soaking to help break down those compounds, so that when you now cook your beans, they don't give you that flatulence. But an important thing that she said, we're going to talk about fiber in a minute, about bacteria and fiber. Yes, there's a hand at the back. Okay.
So if you don't wash your beans properly, like what she was saying is 100% true. If you don't, you need to soak your beans, especially red kidney beans. They have lectin, and lectin is poison. So what a lot of people do, they soak the bean, but they cook the bean in the same water. So you need to soak that and throw it away. That's why they say soak your beans maybe overnight up to 8 hours. If you don't have the time to do that, then cook them, throw away the water, cook them, throw away the water, and then recook them again, because you're getting away the poison, which is lectin, and most beans have that. Next thing I'm saying is, I want to say that the reason why a lot of people do bodybuilding and all that, prioritize meat over beans, is because if you're cutting, okay, you have bulking, you have cutting. Remember, beans is a combination of protein and carbs
and grains,
which is good if you're eating, if you want to have bulk. No meat, but you want a bulk. But meat hardly ever contain any kind of carbs. So eating meat is just like you're just eating total protein. But if you want to bulk, you're gonna be eating carbs and protein at the same time. So most beans, even though they're high in carbs, they're still high in carbs. I mean, even though they're high in protein, they're still high in carbs, especially kidney beans, lentil. When you weigh your lentil, you're still eating carbs, you're still eating protein. So most bodybuilders, they do not want the carbs, especially if they compete. They just want the
Right.
protein. So
Right.
that's why they prioritize the meat over the beans.
Awesome.
No, I said if they're in
If they're cutting, yeah, if they're slimming. So some people who are doing, they want the definition and they go to these competitions and they need to show lean muscle. Your carbs. Yes. So carbs are very important. And I know there's some diets like keto and all of that, which talk about not eating carbs and they only eat fats and protein. Very bad for your kidneys as well. So you want to not do that. And also your gut needs the fiber from the grains. So people who do keto miss out on very essential nutrients, and also they miss out on fiber, and fiber is key. Well, I was going to talk about fiber, why you need, okay, before we go away from here, I don't think the next slide has that, but fiber is the reason why your gut likes all of this is that most of it contains fiber. And fiber is what feeds your bacteria, but they also like other things because they're complicated beings. So they like other things, but the key thing that bacteria like is fiber. And they are the ones, she was talking about how if you don't drink enough water, your fiber will not move forward, right? When you eat, your bacteria actually eats fiber. So in the food that you're eating, like your beans, you've got protein, but you've got the carbs, you've got the soluble fiber, the insoluble fiber. Your bacteria will eat that and release it. So it will break it down, which then allows your food also to be digested by the enzymes and so on. But it then allows that fiber to, if you've mixed oats, you will see the gooiness, right? So it now allows that fiber to be mixed up in such a way that it becomes gooey and allows that food to move down your digestive tract. Now, if you don't have fiber in a food or in a meal, your bacteria cannot eat. It will not eat, and therefore, because it does not eat, let's say you eat a piece of meat, chicken, and you're on a keto diet, and you've just had chicken, and maybe you eat, I don't know, maybe some light thing. Let's just say you have a chicken meal. You have no fiber in that meal. Remember, fiber is only in plants. So you have no fiber in that meal. So what's your bacteria going to do? They're not going to eat. The bad bacteria, on the other hand, right now, yes, maybe, because, right. But the bad bacteria, what happens when you put a piece of meat outside, out of the fridge, or even in the fridge? What starts to happen? It starts to rot. So your bad bacteria starts to feed on that. The staphylococcus, the salmonella, all those bacteria start to feed on the meat, and the meat starts to rot. You start to smell the stink of it, and so on, because I would call them people. The only people between the good and the bad bacteria that are feeding on that meat are the bad guys, because the good bacteria flourishes on fiber. It needs the fiber because that's what it feeds, the onions and all of that. But if you put in your stomach meat or chicken or whatever it is, what bacteria is thriving is only the bad guys, which is also what explains flatulence when you are constipated, because not only is the food not moving because there's no fiber, the food is stuck because your bacteria hasn't digested it. But also now the bad guys are feeding on it. And now the bad guys are feeding on it. Then it begins to ferment. that terrible smell starts to happen. You start to get these toxic gases because the bacteria that's flourishing is the bad one. And that's why vomiting can be a good thing, right? Because if the bad bacteria has been there and it's been flourishing because of something you ate, and you need to throw up, your body's trying to help you, like you were saying, your body's trying to help you to get rid of this stuff so that it doesn't kill you. So when we think about food, I know the enzymes we learn in school. You know, when you do biology in school, anyone who did biology in school, right? You do biology, you learn about what enzymes digest protein. What are they called? Amylase and what? Protease. Yeah, peptides. What digests carbohydrates? What enzymes do that? So they help to break down. You do this in biology, we all did. Amylases, what else? Okay, what digests milk? Lactase. Okay, lactase is a lot of people don't have them. Black people generally, because we're breastfed quite a long time, then we are weaned off milk. So generally that enzyme there's no need for it after you started not having milk. So the body parks it because it's not necessary. And that's why a lot of us have milk intolerances, because we don't continue to have milk way after, especially if you grew up in Africa, way after the period when you are being breastfed by your parent, by your mom. Whereas in the Western society, they start on cow's milk. Usually after 3 months, they start on cow's milk. They continue to drink milk, cow's milk. They have cheese, they have yogurt, they eat milk every day. They may continue to have that enzyme. And they will say to me, I remember once going to a GP and saying, I'm having flatulence and IBS from milk. And they said, oh, because you're Black. It's not because we're Black. It's because especially in Africa, she's like, oh yeah, you all have an intolerance of milk because you are of your race. And it's not that. It's that we stop taking milk when we should stop taking milk. And then we don't need it. We don't need that lactase necessarily. So we may struggle with milk. A lot of people do. Cow's milk, yes.
Okay, I hear what you just said.
Mhm.
I'm lactose intolerant.
Right.
But my mum always says I was breastfed up until a year.
Right.
And then when I went to school in this country at 5 years old, we were given little bottles of milk. Yeah, and I drank that up until probably 10, 11 years old before you went to secondary school. And I begun to have like tummy ache, diarrhea, vomiting from late 20s.
Mhm.
And that has continued.
Right.
So I now know that I'm lactose intolerant.
Right.
So if I don't have milk, if I have chocolate, same thing. If I
Right.
have ice cream, same thing. If I don't have those things, I'm fine.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure.
So that period when you stopped
Yeah.
and then you went to school, we all had that. Like I was breastfed maybe until 18 months, stopped. When I went to grade 1, we were being given the milk. And I never developed an issue. I had issues. I've always had issues with milk. Interestingly, I have been supplementing with a probiotic and enzyme mix, vegan one, that also contains the lactase, and I can now digest milk and I've done it for years. I've done it for like maybe the last 10 years. And now I'll confess, I went on holiday and I had not eaten dairy for a long, long time. And I was on holiday, was a bit in Cyprus, and it was a bit like, oh, what can you eat if you're a vegetarian or vegan? And they had halloumi. And I thought, okay, I'll try the halloumi. I have not had it for ages, but I'm holding my breath because I would get terrible flatulence and pain. And I was okay. It's a smaller animal. Goat milk, not the cow. So maybe that's what it was. So I ate the halloumi and I was fine. But even when I've had like cheesecake lately, in the last 10 years, I can do it. But before I would get a headache, I would have migraines like for weeks. So I just stayed away from milk altogether because it just was bad for you. But we were talking about fiber. I want to emphasize this because you want to have a lot of fiber because your bacteria need fiber. They digest the fiber. they eat the fiber, that's their food. So usually if you get a probiotic supplement, it will almost always contain inulin. Inulin is a fiber which you can get from, different plants. They will often pair up the probiotic supplement with inulin so that the fiber can eat, the bacteria can eat the inulin and then be able to work and do what they need to do. So if you're eating, make sure you always have at least every single day, we need to have at least between 45 grams and 60 grams of fiber. Don't listen to the doctors when they say 25 grams. It's not enough. It's nowhere near enough. And how do you know that? If you take a piece of white bread, that's 0.2 grams of fiber. White rice will be 0.5 grams of fiber. An apple will give you 3 grams or 4 grams of fiber. A cup of berries. Berries are the best in terms of fruit for fiber. So blueberries, raspberries, especially, they contain a lot of fiber. So a cup of fiber of berries might give you 8 grams of fiber. Avocados, half an avocado, 6 or 7 grams of fiber, very good. Beans, 12 grams, a cup of beans, 12 grams of fiber. So if you add it up across the day with different foods, you can get to the 40 grams and more. If you are eating mostly white processed foods, you would hardly get 10 grams a day. Because white bread hardly has anything, white rice hardly has anything, meat has no fiber, milk has no fiber. So just remember, animal foods contain no fiber whatsoever, right? So you want to bulk up with all the different things that give you that. Nuts and seeds and berries and beans or legumes give you a lot more fiber. Avocados, special mention to them. And then apples, oranges, that sort of thing. So that's what you want to have. Her hand was up first. You can go on and then.
Yes, I know Sister Debbie's been talking about water, the significance of us drinking water. However, on that one, I would like us to be a bit clearer. What sort of water we're supposed to be drinking? Are we supposed to be drinking tap water? And how are we supposed to drink it? From my own experience, a couple of months ago, I bought a distiller. And ever since then, I've been drinking water, the distiller. And I tell you guys, it's a complete different ballgame. I sleep much better. My bones, I love running. My bones and the way they, hold together. I don't know if it's the lubricant in my bones. I don't know what it has to do with water, but it has become much better. So I just want to, if it's possible, please, if you have any knowledge about water and what type of water we should be drinking. Thank you.
Well, if we all could, we must get a reverse osmosis filter and filter our water and get rid of the rubbish that's in it, and get rid of fluoride from our water. But we probably won't be able to afford, all of us can't afford that. What I would just say is that as much as possible, drink clean water, fresh water. If you can filter your water by some means, if you can afford a distiller, if I used to get this distiller that would boil and then bring it back down. Is that what you have? I did that for a while, then it broke down because I live in a hard water place. So eventually the lime scale destroyed it. And now I just have a kettle, but I have a good filtering kettle and I buy the filters and it does not just, it's a jug, but it has it has the charcoal. It gets rid of plastics and things like that. So you want to get rid of plastics as much as you can. It removes other pesticides and stuff, but not everyone will afford that. And so what I would recommend is do your best to drink as much water as possible. If you can boil it, if you can filter it, even with simple filtering jugs, and then keep it, drink it fresh as much as possible, and drink as much as you can. It will be helpful because it'd be great if we could do all these things, but fundamentally we want to drink as much clean water as possible. And without sugars added, without colors added, none of this water with, yeah, you know, that water with the pink stuff, flavored water, no flavored waters. They've got chemicals that they add to preserve the flavors that they've put in there, and you don't want that. So just drink, do your best to drink. I would avoid plastics. Let's just put that way. Avoid plastic water if you can. Like I'm drinking water now. I really would like to. If you have no choice, you can. But however, if you're buying bottled water, buy bottled water, as in bottle. I saw somebody with a Voss thing today. It's expensive. Yeah, glass bottles. If you can afford it. It's more expensive. They know that. It's more expensive. I've also seen water in BPA type plastics.
Yeah.
I've seen.
It was just to say with the plastics, it's particularly for women, they're hormone disruptors. That's why we avoid plastic. If you have to, you know, like if you happen to buy a takeaway, you might want to reuse those portable things.
Yeah.
Maybe use like a brown lining paper.
Okay.
You know, if you're taking your food, whatever, to work, line those plastic dishes with your baking powder, paper, so the food doesn't touch. And whatever you do not heat food in those plastics, because it nukes that, and all the nonsense from the plastic goes into your food. And also no microwaves.
Yeah. And I would say that even with plastics for men, I would just be cautious, because some of the plastics are cancerous, they're carcinogenic, and we've seen that every time I'm reading, they're saying more and more about these forever chemicals that are in our water and that are in plastics, and microplastics get into our brain. They're impacting us so much that it's scary. And to be honest, after all of saying all of this, I always say, God, you're the only one that keeps us alive on this planet. Because when you think of the microplastics we've been taking in since birth, all the different things we've been fed by the wrong fluoride. Fluoride should not be in our water, right? And it is in many places, and fluoride actually is damaging. But so I was reading about fluoride this last week, because the last time we talked about fluoride in my life was I was doing my public health degree, and we were discussing fluoride and whether or not it should be happening. So we'd have debates about it and the pros and the cons and so on. And you'll see in America, there's lots of cities that are saying we don't want fluoride in our water. So I was actually revisiting that story to see why and how it came about from the 1920s, that eventually they fluoridated everyone's water, was because fluoride was shown to stop cavities. And it does. But what they then did, they decided that to stop cavities en masse, let's just mass treat the whole population by putting fluoride in drinking water. But it had actually been shown to only work here. But when it's now in your body, it affects your bones, it causes leaching, it affects so many other things that at that time they hadn't probably even gone into the research to understand. And now the research is there that shows that mass fluoridation of water actually is no longer necessary, because our toothpaste have fluoride. So even if you wanted to help children not have cavities, they can brush their teeth. We don't need to be drinking fluoride, you know. So it's a very tricky thing, political thing.
But can that jug for the people who are let's expect the distiller, which I bought one of those as well. If you have you can get a jug with charcoal, because charcoal is a very good substance for neutralizing poisons. It's one of the best. It neutralizes most things. Most poisons.
Yeah.
So if you get a jug and with charcoal, and then run the water through the charcoal, which safeguards you. Another thing is the plastic bottles. They say the harder the plastic is, the less the plastic will deteriorate in heat, because it's when the water bottles heat up, the plastic melts and deteriorates. So they said if you get hard plastic bottles, it helps to safeguard the water a bit. But just on an interesting note, what about plastic clothes? some of us wrap our bodies in plastic clothes instead of wearing natural fibers. So maybe that could be addressed. And also, I'd like to say as well that back to the point on your fiber, when you have enough fiber in your body, you will be able to hold your urine more. Some people don't drink water. They say, I'm going to run to the toilet, which does make you happen. You can drink the water and 5 minutes later you want to go to the toilet and you can't get any work done. So some people hold off on the water and say, look, I need to get some work done. But if you eat more fiber, the fiber will then absorb the water in your system and it will hold the water in your body. And then you will be able to hold your urine up to an hour. It is possible to hold your urine up to an hour when you drink 2 liters. But that could be an impossible task for some people, but you are meant to hold the urine. And when you hold urine, it exercises the bladder muscles so that they grow stronger. And when you grow older, you're less likely to be incontinent and have those pads.
We don't want to have those pads, right? I know that's the worst nightmare for all of us. I think that is my worst nightmare. The idea of pads when I'm older, I'm like, oh no, please. So keep your bladders healthy and don't and also don't hold your wee unnecessarily, because then that means you're going to end up having leaking bladders that will eventually cause you problems when you're older, and you don't want that. So yeah, fiber. So we were saying that fiber is a crucial nutrient. You know, fiber is a nutrient, right? We used to call it a waste product, but actually fiber is a nutrient. And the person who needs it the most is us, but it's our bacteria that need the fiber so that they can function. And they love it. It's part of their nutrition, what they love to eat. And therefore, we must all make sure we have lots of plant foods. Even if you are eating animal protein, try your best to have more plant food in your diet. Yes, so if you can eat wheat, great. So try and as much as possible in the course of a week, have a meat-free meal. If you are eating meat, try as best as possible to have a meat-free day or to have more of your days be meat-free. Here's an interesting thing. There's a book I'm going to recommend. It's called the Better Mood Book. Better Mood Food Book. Better Mood Food Book. It's a very interesting book. You know, some books you don't need to go far. You can read the first chapter and it will tell you everything. And then you're like, okay, I'm not doing that. Like if you read the China Study, anyone ever heard of the China Study, right? If you've read it, you realize that somebody took my China Study and never brought it back. And that's really annoying. But when you read the first few chapters of the China Study, you will not have milk for the rest of your life. You don't need to go far in that book to become a vegan. Because in the first few chapters, they explain how they got to that place themselves, that even before the study, they became vegan. Just from the experiments they did in the lab to test out their hypothesis of what was causing cancer in China and in the Philippines on the children. And they tested different foods and discovered that when they gave milk to cancer cells, they flourished. And the cancer cells would grow and grow and grow. And when they gave garlic to cancer cells, they shrunk. Not all foods treat cancer the same way. Some tomatoes actually can cause some types of cancers to flourish, but they did that in the lab. And while they were preparing so that they could go and then do their community intervention and research, they did that in the lab. And Colin Campbell became a vegan, and he had been brought up on a farm where they ate meat. And that was what he went to study in Stamford. He was studying animal husbandry and how to make cows grow so they can feed the world more. And that's how he got to be in that study. But now when he was doing this and preparing, because they're trying to figure out why there was so much liver cancer in the children. And this is how they arrived at that. So if you read the first 2 chapters or 3 chapters of the China Study, it's a big book. You don't need to read the rest. You can change your life. The same with this Good Mood Food book. If you read it, you will understand why you must always have an animal protein-free meal every day. That why you must have a meal that only has plants every single day for as much as possible throughout the course of the week. And actually why you should have more animal-free days in your meals in the course of the week. Because of, we were talking about amino acids, and we're talking about serotonin and tryptophan and your gut and your bacteria relationship. The amino acid that makes serotonin is mostly from plants. It's tryptophan, right? And tryptophan is found in different types of foods, but tryptophan size is usually, it's important when you're making serotonin that it can actually be out competed by the other amino acids in your brain where you make serotonin, as well as in your gut, that it will not be used by your brain because of the size of it to make serotonin. So you will not make, in essence, summary, you will not make as much serotonin, which is your feel-good hormone, if you eat more animal protein, which equates to you being more depressed and more anxious and less joyous and just unhappy. And you may not know why, but because if you're eating more animal protein, you're not going to make as much tryptophan, you're not going to make as much serotonin from the tryptophan that you might have in your diet than if you eat plants. So if you can help yourself, if you want to be happy, eat more plant protein. And if you can exclude animal protein altogether, I encourage people to start where you are with what you have, right? Start where you are with what you have by having more crowding out. I call it crowding out. Crowd out the meat and the dairy by having just lots of vegetables in your plate and a tiny amount of meat. And you will discover that as you school your tongue gets more used to the plants, to the seeds, to the nuts, that the meat part, which becomes smaller and smaller, becomes less palatable. And eventually get those free animal-free days where you have lots of plants, but most importantly, learn to cook the food nicely so that it's delicious, so that your tongue doesn't think, oh, we miss the garlics of Egypt and the pork and the flesh pots of Egypt, right? If you cook your food well, you won't miss the flesh pots of Egypt. So do that, but crowd out the meat slowly but surely. And eventually you'll get to a point where the meat is no longer what you want. And your body will tell you that, because the bad bacteria, you won't like them. They will not do you well. Okay, I want to finish by talking about young people and why this is important. And I think we'll end here. So this is a study that came out in 2022, Drugs, Guts, Brains, but not Rock and Roll. And you can find this if you take the title, you can go read the whole thing. It's actually, there's lots of summaries of this study online because of the way it was such an important breakthrough study. And it's showing the role of gut microbiomes in contemporary mental health and wellness of emerging adults and teenagers and 16 to 25-year-olds. And it looked at what was happening as far as the mental health sphere. We know that there's a lot of self-harming amongst young people. We know there's a lot of what we call emotionally unstable personality disorders. We know there's a lot of depression amongst young people that isn't related to what may be going on in their lives. And I've worked in a mental health hub in Northampton, and in this hub, we used to take calls from people, adults, 18 and above. And most times, if you got a phone call from someone born in 2001, 2002, from 1999, this way, you would get frantic and worried because more often than not, you couldn't help them. They would call in suicidal, self-harming, I'm about to jump off. Usually it was, I'm cutting myself or I'm about to take an overdose or something like that. And then you would ask them why, and they couldn't tell you. They were just miserable. And they would tell you, oh, it's everything. And then you say, okay, give me one thing. They say, I don't know. But they just felt unhappy. They just feel like something is wrong. And it was a bit, it was always challenging because if somebody comes to me and says, I'm calling because I just lost my job, we can talk about that and we can problem solve, right? But if someone calls you and says, I just feel miserable, I don't know what's wrong with me, I don't want to live, but I can't tell you why I don't want to live, you don't know what to do. And so more often than not, we'll be like, oh no, it's a 2001. I'm sorry to say this, but it's a 2002 call. Everyone will be like, I don't want to pick it up. I don't want to pick it up because I don't know what I'm going to do to help this person. And here's the study that might explain what is happening with our young people and why it is that they may not have, they're struggling with their mental health. First of all, we know that it's a critical period. Young age, teenagehood is a critical period for them in terms of developing their gut, also developing the maturation of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So your HPA, so your hypothalamus determines almost everything, and your pituitary gland as well. And then your adrenal gland is the one that responds to stress. So it produces cortisol, it helps you run away and so on. So while this is maturing, this axis that controls how you feel, how you respond to life, how you run and so on, when this is maturing, a lot of young people, this is where we respond to stress, mood, emotions, energy storage, etc. They're determined by those three major glands: hypothalamus, the adrenal glands, and your pituitary gland. So while this is maturing, we actually have found, this study has found that there's an interruption in that maturation that should be happening in young people because of, can you guess? The food they're eating. Yes, their diet. So the food they're eating is not helping them promote this growth of this axis that allows them to be able to deal with life and to deal with stress. Your hypothalamus determines sleep. When you turn on the hypothalamus, it's the one that switches on your sleep center. It says, okay, now it's time to go to bed. But young people are struggling with sleep. A lot of them are struggling with what they're eating. And they found that in Western countries, especially, young people have unstable gut microbiomes. Their microbiome is quite unstable. It's also simpler and less diverse. She talked about our microbiome being unique. Here's an interesting thing. If you go to someone in Africa or in the middle of the rainforest somewhere where they eat differently from us, their poo is going to be bigger. It's probably going to be more formed. But here's also another interesting thing. Their poo will have more bacteria than yours will. Have much more bacteria. Not parasites, good bacteria. Yeah, good bacteria. And this is an interesting thing that they're actually doing is you can import bacteria from someone and put it in another person's gut in order for them to have a more diverse gut bacteria. And this actually can help some people be happier. And they're doing these experiments and using stool. They extract the bacteria. They don't put the stool. They extract the bacteria. And they take the bacteria from a stool from somebody who's happier. They're doing this in psychiatric units. They'll find a jolly person and they will take the jolly person's bacteria and get the bacteria, stool, get the bacteria. Yes, it's called transplantation. They're doing it for mental health. And take that bacteria, put it in somebody else, because that bacteria is, remember what we said, is determining what? The mental health, right? And your emotional health. So they're doing this transplantation all the time. So link between our diet, our exercise, sleep, and gut bacteria. We know that if you sleep poorly, what happens to your gut? If you haven't slept, do you want to eat? Usually no. If you're tired and you don't want to, you haven't slept, your gut bacteria would tell you we don't want food. Because the priority is what? Is sleep. It will prioritize you sleeping. It's telling the brain we need rest. This person needs to sleep. And so we want this link between our gut to be very clear for the young people. What is causing the disturbance for them? So many other things. Genetics, of course, maternal infections, C-section babies don't get a chance to get the bacteria as they come out through, when a baby comes out through the mother's vaginal wall, they take bacteria from the vaginal wall, and that's good for them. So they accumulate that bacteria. But if you have a C-section, the child doesn't get a chance to do that. And so that can be an issue. Antibiotics. Destroying everything, destroying your bacteria. If you've had antibiotics in the last 5 years, you need to be particularly making sure you take lots of probiotics as well, just to replenish what you've lost. Also, what's impacting our young people is the diet, the stress, childhood adversity, and exercise, lack of it. Yeah.
And just going back to young people and sleep, we need to control the devices for our children. Take them out of their rooms. The blue light, last thing at night, is not helping them. They need to wind down. No screens at least an hour before bedtime.
Yeah. So when we think about our children, thank you about talking about screen time. When we think about our children, millennials are people born from like 1980, their mental health is bad as well. And a lot of it is related to sleep. They found that millennials don't sleep as much. But this is the life of our children. And this lifestyle of the video games, lack of activity, they're not exercising, they're not outdoors, they're not getting the sunshine. Remember, we said vitamin D is important for our mental health. They're not getting that because they're always indoors, most likely on video games, getting their brains wired to levels of addiction, right? Because the games are addictive. I was giving a speech or a presentation on addiction in a church a month ago, and this young man, so I was talking about what I was trying to teach the children about addiction as well, because there were lots of kids there. And I was saying to them, think of it like a donut. How many of us love donuts? How many of us love donuts? Right. So if you are a lover of donuts, you're probably going to be looking for donuts all the time. And addictions are like that. I used to love donuts to the point that wherever I travel, I would look for the donut shop and I would find donuts. And if I couldn't find donuts, and one time I came away from Italy, Italy has the best donuts. I came back from Italy and I didn't eat the donut at the airport. And then I was thinking about it all the time. Like, why didn't I eat the donut at the airport? Why didn't I eat the donut at the airport? And then I came back and we went to Cornwall for a youth thing. And I was there and they had this nice donut place in Cornwall. I ate the donut. They baked their donuts there and they were so nice. And then we thought we'd come back. I was with Sister Tembi from CCS. I thought we'll come back and buy the donuts the next morning. They were closed. So we couldn't get the donuts. And we both love donuts. And we were frantic, so we ended up going online to figure out how we can buy frozen donuts. And then I said, we can buy packs of them, like dozens, and then we'll freeze them, and then we will eat them bit by bit. And then I thought that was a silly idea. Let's not do that, because that's diabetes knocking on your door, right? We're not going to do that. But then I thought I'll make my own donuts. Gluten-free, sugar-free. Maybe add something sweet as a sweetener, like dates or something. And then so I went on Amazon and I found a donut making machine. Anyone ever use one? You guys, I found a donut making machine that bakes the donuts, like a waffle maker, sort of. And I was so excited. The thing arrived and it was small, like this. And the donuts things were tiny little things. So I said, okay, I'll still make the donuts. Let's see. Gluten-free flour. I added and I add whatever I added and I put the things in there for the donuts to be baked. And they came out like little hard Cheerios. So bad. And I said, oh dear. So I took it to my friend's house. She's got 2 girls. I said, Auntie bought you a donut maker for Christmas. So I gave it to them. I gave up on the donuts altogether. Now I don't bother with donuts. But you know what? No, I don't. But you know what? When our children when we give them sugar, they become addicted to all of this stuff. And it's impacting their mood because they now want to keep looking for what? For donuts. And they can't sleep. They're hyperactive and their brain is constantly looking for this. And we know there's no fiber in most of this junk that they might be eating. The drinks, the chicken. Whenever I ask children, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite food? Starbucks. What's your favorite food? Fast foods, like which one? KFC. Children love nuggets. Their favorite food is nuggets, pasta, cheese. and chips. That's what most children, if you look in the potluck queue, most children would take pasta and maybe rice, and they won't take anything else. And so when you talk about diversity of microbiomes, I want us to understand this point. Your microbiome, remember we said they like variety and they like to eat different things of plant nature. If you only eat nuggets and pasta, how much variety of bacteria are you going to have? The ones that you only eat those things for one, and which bacteria? Bad bacteria. So our children are imbibing all this stuff and growing an environment full of bad bacteria that does not promote mental health, because that's not what they do. They will not promote their body's physical health as well. And if we have no variety on their plates, they're not eating fruit, they're hardly eating any other vegetables besides wheat or grains besides wheat. They're only eating maybe occasionally peas and carrot. They're only going to develop 3 or 4 good bacteria maybe. And then the diversity of your bacteria also is important for your physical health, because of all the awesome functions that bacteria do that we don't even understand, and also for your mental health. And so when we are limiting our children to eating white foods, a few colors, we're limiting their future potential mental health. This is so crucial that if you ever take away anything from this seminar today, is go home, look at your cabinets, look at your fridges, look at what you're feeding the children every day, and think, how do I want my child to show up a year from now, when she's a teenager? Well, partly, but also because in Africa, our idea of mental health is different, right? So and what to do with it also is different. As for example, schizophrenia in Africa can be viewed from a religious point of view as either demonic possession or something like that. So it's treated differently, and people are not necessarily going to be brought to a hospital to treat schizophrenia. But talking about schizophrenia and bacteria, one of the things that's interesting that's happening, and I will give you a study later on, you can go and read. It's actually BBC did a write-up online about this. There's a hospital in London called Bethlehem Hospital, where a doctor discovered in 1919 that if you fed people fermented food and took away meat from their diet, that they actually recovered from what they used to call melancholy or depression. And that hospital, Bethlehem, is still in existence. They have a plant-based cafe at their hospital. They still do that today. He did this experiment. He got rid of meat from their diet, gave them fermented milk and, sorry? Kimchi, yes, and sauerkraut, things like that, that their mood was better. But also who changed and improved were people with schizophrenia. To the point that now in some of the psychiatric hospitals that follow a more holistic approach, they give people who have schizophrenia, so they're having hallucinations, delusions, and what we say can't be treated. They give them their antipsychotics, and they also give them a probiotic. And they're getting better and recovering and being cured of these issues that they have, because now the brain is working better. They're improving that. So it's a very interesting thing. So our children, if they're doing all of this, they're basically going to have poor sleep. They're going to have the issues that they have. And I want to end here because of time. And we want to talk about how do we move forward. So I'm going to give, oh yes, you have your hand.
Sorry, can I just ask this final question?
Yes.
Tofu, how healthy is that?
It depends on whether the soy milk was organic or not. So generally, I would say if you're going to do soya, it's good for you, but it should be organic, because soy is the most GMO'd bean in the world. Soybeans. The American, most of our soya Yeah, but most of our soy milk comes from other countries. And they most likely have GMO'd that milk. And the way food production works nowadays is that, for example, something can be grown in Canada, brought to some other place to be put together. So we really never know unless you are eating from you. And so they often say from various countries. They have to label it, but they will say for mixed products from mixed countries, or even honey. Honey can actually be mixed with other things, and it will come from this country and that country. And then when it comes here in the factories, they put it in one jar, but it's actually come from elsewhere. So I would say if you can go organic with soy and organic tofu, which you can get, like Aldi has it, and you can get organic tofu, you are limiting the chances of you getting the GMO variety. But tofu is good for us. But the more you can have fermented soy, the better, like tempeh, which takes a bit of getting used to. But once you get used to it, you're all right. Yeah, like anything. Yeah. Yeah, like seedless grapes and things like seedless oranges. So you don't want to be eating things that just they're being cloned, in other words, rather than being grown. So I wanted to end here, and I wanted to, because we know the importance of sleep and exercise and all of these things. So I'm going to ask some questions. And the question what we were looking at in summary is how important it is for us to look after the bacteria and our gut health so that we can have good mental health. And of course, we know that that's important as well for physical health. But today primarily was on mental health in the morning and now. And I want us to just give me some things you're going to do. So let's talk about 3 things or 1 thing that you're going to do from today's workshop that you're saying, because of this, what I learned today, I'm going to do this to improve my gut health and my mental health, whether from the morning and also from the afternoon. So I just want to hear from you. 1 thing that you're going to do differently that maybe you knew and was not doing. Now you understand better why you need to do it, or something new that you learned and you're now going to add to your routine that will help you to have better gut health, help your children to have better gut health and mental health. And I want to emphasize this for the children. I always ask the children a question. Do you guys want to do well in school? Who wants to do well in school? Right, who wants to be happy? We all want to be happy, right? So what we learned today will make us happier and will also make us do well in school, because our brains are going to operate better and faster and more efficiently and sharper when we do some of the things I spoke about today, like the food and all of that. So who wants to be happy? Who wants to be happy? Right. Who wants to be sharp at school and do well? Right. You guys want to do that? So when mummies and daddies come to you and they say, right, this is how we're going to eat from today onward in order for you to be happier, because you heard what I say, that I worked with people. Sometimes young people are coming in, they're depressed. What that means is they're very sad. They are crying all the time. And we know that it's because of what they're eating, and they're not sleeping and spending too much time on video games and not getting exercise because of how it impacts their bacteria and their brain. And so if I was to come to you guys and say, right, you want to be cleverer than some of those people. So exercise is what you want to be doing, eating well, eating fiber, eating more plants, less junk food, less video games, better sleep. These are the things that are going to make you happier. Are you going to want to do them? Are you going, if I say this is what's going to make you happy, do you want to do what's going to make you happy or what's going to make you sad? Happy, right? Okay, so we'll leave it there. So when parents come and they tell you this is going to make you happy, everybody wants to be what? Okay, adults. What things are you going to do that are going to make you happier? Exercise more. What else? Because we all want to be happy, right? This is a simple thing. Yeah, this is a simple, the bottom line is we want to be happy. Yes, what are you going to do? Oh, with the gut. Okay. Well, one of the things she mentioned was moving things, right? And the fact that when you exercise, it improves blood flow to the gut, which supports what the gut is doing, the digestion. It also helps to move things to the blood as well as move things out. And every time we have compaction and stagnation in the gut, we're not going to be happy. So exercise is going to help you do that. But also exercise helps you produce serotonin, right? So serotonin is made mostly where? In the gut, 80%. Yeah, so that's also helping you do that. So it's very important. So that's why we need it every day, if we can. Okay, adults, what are we going to do to be happier people? The title of this is actually on another, I've got a different version of it called You Happier. Because I think that happy is what everyone wants, right? Joy is great. We can have joy when we're sick, even because the joy of the Lord is our strength. However, happiness comes from how we are experiencing life. And we all want to be happy. So what are we going to do? Just anyone, you can shout out one thing or two things you're going to do more of or less of or better, or a new thing you're going to pick up that is going to make you happier because your gut is happier and your brain is happier. More beans?
Meat.
More lean meat? Okay. All right, if that works for you.
He's vegan.
He's
That's
vegan.
a message to him. More fermented foods.
More fermented foods. Yes. Soaking beans. Awesome. Soaking beans. Yes. Yeah, we're going to soak our beans more thoroughly so we don't get flatulence and hate beans as a result. Yes. Fermenting food. Yes. Less milk. Awesome. Less milk. Well done. Milk is we didn't talk about this, but milk, bad bacteria like milk. Yeah, so we don't want bad bacteria, we want the good guys. Yes? Fermented milk, probably better than unfermented milk. However, milk has other problems. And it's the other problems why we don't want to do milk altogether. Kefir can be done without milk. You can do it with water. Yeah, yeah, you can do it with water. Yeah. Oh, I didn't hear what he said. Sorry.
Smoothies, is it okay to have
Yeah,
smoothies every day?
Smoothies, yes, have them every day. What I would recommend, if you're having a smoothie, make your smoothie as fibrous as possible. So add flaxseed, add what's this? Chia seed. Yes, and add other things, spinach, make it more wholesome and less sugary. If you're doing a fruit smoothie that's use berries versus apples and bananas, use berries, eat your bananas, eat your apples. If you're smoothing, you can use berries because of the fiber. It causes less of a spike in your sugar. Otherwise, smoothies and juicing, basically you're shooting yourself with sugar. So add flax, add chia seed, add, even if you want to add a bit of oats, hemp, yes, you can add hemp, add other seeds as well. And that way, more filling, it becomes a meal and it doesn't spike your sugars. Yeah.
Fluoride free.
Mm-hmm.
Fluoride free. We're going to avoid that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you can get a charcoal-based filter, and you can get really good ones. Do a bit of research. The one I have is a simple jug, but the filter has charcoal and other things that filter plastics and yeah, fluoride and chlorine. Yeah. Stop eating processed foods. Awesome. Yes. Yes. Stop eating processed foods. Other people, what else are you going to be doing? Oh. Oh, bless you. Thank you. Where did you come from? From Grenada. Well done. That's a long way.
I in particular was very touched by the story with the two guys in the boat. Because I don't know if you remember the two numbers you used, the 438, which is the number of days, both of them, one was 2 months.
Yeah.
Experiencing the same event, seeing it from a different point of view and having definitely a different outcome. And that's powerful for those of us having even the same house, having different experiences based on what we're going through. Even though the math, 70 times 7 is what we are advised at least to forgive. And that's 490. If
Yeah.
we remove 52, which is a week of, 52 weeks in a year, you end up with 438. That gave me a way to remember the 438. And just to say,
Okay.
as Adventists, we're very good at saying, stop smoking, stop drinking, eat healthy. And there's something called micro lives, which says, if you eat meat, you're going to lose a couple of years. If you exercise, for example, you can add 2 years to your life. If you don't smoke or drink, you can add But what I found very amazing recently is that if 2 things that give you more life than everything else, being generous
Amen.
and being thankful.
Amen.
More than anything else, we'll get 4 and 6 years on top of what we might do in addition to all the lovely things you said. So thank you very much. You've been blessing to us. Thank you so much.
Amen. We thank God for that. Amen. Amen. Yes.
No, I was thinking about gut and happy, but what about sad vegans? People who don't eat and they're just grumpy.
Well,
and
true.
mourning.
What we spoke about in the morning, right? That even if you're vegan, that's a good point, because you could be vegan all you want, all your life, but if you have a wrong attitude, it is like he said, if you have grumpy, full of ingratitude, critical, judgmental attitude, you might as well be smoking and eating meat every day. Or you could be worse. Yeah, you could be worse than that person, because the power of our minds and our attitudes on our health is so crucial. Somebody else, yes? Yes. Do you know what? That's a very important thing, because they used to use different words in the old days. They used words like melancholy and your color, that sort of thing, like for anger and so on. When you are angry or when you're melancholic, you are you are stimulating that HPA we talked about, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and the adrenal gland. You are causing your adrenals to produce cortisol and other hormones like adrenaline. They go through your cells, including your eggs and your sperm. And so when those hormones are impacting your reproductive cells, they can be passed on to your children. So your children come out already angry because they've had a lot of cortisol going through the cells. Those cells already have some biochemical changes that have been happening in their DNA while the child is not even thought of, because you are constantly angry or in a bad mood or complaining or critical of others. You are creating changes that are generational, because they are affecting your sperm and your egg cells and will be passed on to your children as actually biochemical markers on your DNA. It changes your amino acid shapes and the connection. DNA is just amino acids, right? It's called methylation. So that process of how your different arginine, cysteine, all of those, how they're connected can be altered, and that's how we have mutations and diseases. And stress hormones can alter how your amino acids in your DNA are connected. That's why we must relax and stress less and sleep better. And all of this, not only will it impact you, but you are passing it on to the third and the what? A fourth generation. And isn't God good? Because that could actually be passed down to the 10th and the 11th generation. But science is actually showing that it's passed only to the third and fourth generation to give future generations a chance and an opportunity for them to also start their own, right, generations and their own lives. Otherwise, we would all be doomed to be like our great grandparents. But we're not. We can start afresh and create a new internal life within our environment internally and pass that on to our children and our children's children. It's never too late for you to do that and for all of us. So we're going to end here. And I want to thank you all for being so good for an afternoon gang, right? Usually people in the afternoon, they're sleeping, you guys were all great. You were alert, you were contributing, and it was vibrant, and I'm glad. So we can all go away and be doing all these amazing things that are going to help us to be happier. And as you ended on that note of, what was it, generationally, what you ended us on, this is why we do what we do now. I want to say this, God has given us hope, and I'm going to read as I finish. One of my favorite when I finish doing these things, I wanted, Joshua said, as for me and who? We will serve the Lord. Him and his house, they decided that they will serve the Lord. What I know, and this is why I love what I'm doing, is that when I impact you, I'm impacting your grandchildren. That this information is going to impact your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren and your great-great-grandchildren. That if you start to make changes today, if you're a young lady or a young man who hasn't had children yet, when you start eating healthy, sleeping better, even our children right now, when they start doing that, they will impact their children and their children's children, because every young girl has all her eggs from birth. And so when she's sleeping better, eating better, she's already impacting the eggs that will now be her child. And then that child, when they're already in the womb, already has eggs. When a woman is pregnant, she has a fetus that already starts to have eggs. So there are 3 generations in one. You and the child you are carrying and the eggs of that child are being impacted by your choices today, your lifestyle. And because of that, we all have a responsibility to make sure that the choices we're making are good ones, so that our children and our children's children's children do not suffer the consequences of our bad choices. And that's why when I talk to even the young girls, I ask them, do you want to be a mother one day? They say yes. And I say, but do you know what you're doing today will affect your baby? Even when they're 10 years old, they start to think, oh, so if I sleep better, then when I have a child, they'll be better, they will think better, they'll do better. They start to make the right choices. And that's a powerful thing. To know what you are doing right now is for generations to come. That's such an important thing. Yes. Right. Yes. Yes. That is true. So when somebody has a deliberate termination of a pregnancy, they will be, yes, terminating not only that child, but the child already has, especially after a certain period in the womb, they already have eggs for their own reproduction later on, because we're all born, every woman is born with all their eggs right from the beginning. So yes, that is true. So we need, obviously, this is an important thing, right? So I'm going to read Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy is, as we finish, we can all stand as we read the word, and we're going to pray. Deuteronomy 30. So God is giving us an opportunity to choose what we will do and how we will live our lives, not just for ourselves, but also for our children and their children and their children's children. And he says to us, this is so important in Deuteronomy 30, and I want to encourage you to choose, make the right choices. He says, we have a choice between life and death. And then he says, this is the command I am giving you today. And the command I'm giving you today, it is not too difficult. I'm reading from the NLT. It's not too difficult for you to understand, and neither is it beyond your reach. It is not kept in heaven, so distant that you must ask, who will go up to heaven and bring it down to us so we can hear it and obey it? It is not kept beyond the sea, so far away that you must ask, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, and that thou mayest do it. See, I have set before you this day life and good, and death and evil. And he says, choose. Verse 19, I call on heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I've set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that you and your seed and your seed, and the NLT says choose life, so that you and your descendants might live. And I want to encourage you to choose health, so that you and your descendants might live healthy, prosperous, and happy lives. You have the ability to make those choices today on their behalf, even before they exist. By the choices that you're making today in your life, you will lead by example. I became vegan because my grandmother was vegan. I was 18. I was actually vegetarian. And I had grown up seeing her doing all of that. And then I thought, when I turned 18, my rite of passage into adulthood is choosing to stop to eat meat. And I did, and my family didn't like it, but it changed my health around and turned things around for me. I had lots of allergies growing up. When I stopped eating meat, the allergies disappeared and I was feeling better and so on. And so because of my grandmother's example, and I took that example from her, I chose to live a healthier life. And I stand here probably doing this work because of what she did and the example that she set for us. And so I want to ask the adults to live a good and exemplary life for your children and your generations to come. But most importantly, knowing that the biology, your psyche is also going to impact them in ways that you may not understand. May God bless you all. I'm going to ask Pastor to pray for us because I saw you came in. Please come and give us a word of prayer as we end. You did hear some things, I'm sure. I saw you come in for quite a bit of it, most of it. Please pray for us and as we finish. Thank you.
Okay. Let's pray, everyone. O grateful Heavenly Father, for your love and your goodness towards the children of men. We know you have a plan for our lives before the foundations of this world, a plan that cannot be thwarted by the evil one. A plan, Father, if we align ourselves with your will and your ways, trusting in your word, even for our diet, how we communicate, we just follow your footsteps. Father, we believe you will help us to pass on to the next generation the truths and even the emotions that will lead them to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ and a confidence about themselves. We know we're living in a world where even our young people are not as confident as they should be, not as secure as they should be. And Father, we know that there are so many different variables that they're impacted, but we know with you and your Spirit prompting us to follow the still small voice. This is the way walk ye in it, even when it comes to the diet and the way that we just live in general. We believe, Father, that we can be a workforce that will impact this world to what they can to improve their health and not just their physical health, but their emotional and spiritual health. We know, Father, that our bodies are the temple of God, and you've said that if we destroy this body, then you will destroy us. So may we, in a sense, revolutionize our lives according to your words, and may we have the impact that we should have in this generation, in our communities, bringing men and women to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. Thank you for Sister Edith. Thank you for the knowledge that has been imparted, and thank you for those who will go away and they'll say, we'll not just be hearers of your words, but we'll make by your Holy Spirit, we'll have this desire to make some changes, maybe small, but changes that will lead to a better quality of life, even to serve you longer and to serve you with every fiber of our being, with all the energies that we should have in serving you. We thank you and we praise you that you are so concerned about every area of our lives, and it is your desire, Father, to not merely exist, but to flourish and to have this kind of a life that you have called the abundant life, the very life of God, being vibrant and being full of energy. So may we depend on you, and may we continue to hear the still small voice saying, walk ye in it. As we go on our way, we praise your name, and we continue to share with our friends and our families the good news that Jesus is coming soon. He's coming for a prepared people. We want to be among the workforce that will ushering this time when men and women will come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. So we thank you and we praise you. As we go on our way, we ask you now, Father, to go with us even throughout the untried week, as we continue to depend upon your grace to keep us each and every day. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.